Hi, I'm Kevin Aldrich, and this is an interview with St. Louis writer Paul Conley. He's a mechanical engineer who writes a number of things. One is a very interesting history book called, here it is, It's the Origins of Baseball in St. Louis, a documentary of the events of baseball in St. Louis from 1860 to 1875. Tell us briefly about your professional work.
Well, I'm the chief engineer at Lincoln Engineering, now a company owned by SKF, which is a producer of a global company, a producer of bearings for all sorts of machinery and industry. And in my capacity, I work in new product development and technology development. So part of my job is to invent and to create and to bring out somewhat innovation to the industry that we
I see.
serve. In particular, we serve the heavy industries like steel mills, mining, pulp and paper, cement plants, things of that nature. We are develop products and solutions for.
Good. Well, one of the ideas in this Catholic imagination is actually that a mark of a Catholic writer is love for reality. And as a mechanical engineer, you're dealing with physical reality all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about your book on baseball.
Well, I grew up with a family and a culture and a neighborhood of kids that played a lot of baseball, so it was important to me. Plus, it was a important cultural significance in St. Louis, and so I used to have a grandmother who was actually born in 1885, who used to talk about her memories of baseball being played, right around the turn of the century. So it kind of got me interested. How did all this get started? And so I researched it over 8 years, and I found out a lot of interesting things. And I thought it would be good to capture that in some kind of formal way, so that if anybody else wanted to know to the details of how baseball really got started and evolved, that they could now just pick out and get one book and read it. I just didn't want to, for a while there I had a manuscript and things like that, but I wanted to have it more accessible to people. So so this book is available through the internet and on historical sites around St. Louis.
What about how have your sales been? How have you sold the book, and how well is it done?
Well, it's not something that I went into thinking this is, I could quit my job and live off
Sure.
of royalties. But, maybe about 400 books have been sold over a few years, which isn't much. But it's not, it wasn't my goal to try to promote it in any big way to get money. I just wanted to make it available and such that universities could use it in their libraries and things like that for historical reference.
Well,
And
one
go ahead.
reason one reason I thought our aspiring writers would be interested in your story is that you found something local that had a definite local audience. So people would want to read your book, and one thing writers want is for people to read their writing. So I think that what you've done could be duplicated in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of cities. Just to An aspiring writer could find a story to be told, like in this case, the origins of baseball in one particular city. So whatever that would be, and then write a book on it, get the experience of writing, and then have an audience to get some feedback. So,
Yep.
well, tell us why you write books of all things. You could be doing other things like.
Well, in my professional career, we do enough research and development, and where we do publish our research in scientific journals. So I write in that
I
capacity.
see.
I'm not a very good writer, so I always have to depend on a lot of help there. But as far as the content and some of the things that are innovative, I have to publish. I publish those papers, um, in, like I said, scientific journals. I've co-authored chapters in some major significant scientific research books published by CRC Press. And then, so I thought, there's some personal things I'm interested in, which was baseball and history. I'm generally interested in history, and as far as a hobby, baseball. So I wanted to document that so people knew who were the people responsible, so maybe they wouldn't be forgotten through history. Then I'm writing another book on technology development techniques for companies who aren't have large, enormous research budgets like NASA or Boeing or Caterpillar or General Motors. I've been able to resolve how medium-sized or smaller-sized companies can still be innovative, but yet not necessarily have a huge development and research budget. So I want the general common good, for our country, for companies to have an edge on innovation, because I think it's good for the common good. And as a Catholic, I think that anything that we do should serve the common good. So it should have some basic truth and service to society.
Well, thank you, and that's actually fascinating because as we developed the idea of the Catholic imagination and how our Catholic faith could relate to our writing, you brought up a totally new area, which is public service to the common good. And that's one of the key human and also Catholic ideas. So, what's your writing process currently? And by that I mean, what do you do that makes it possible for you to actually write a whole book and now almost write a second book? How do you go about doing it? Where do you find the time, so on?
Well, I just try. I know that this isn't going to. I have a passion, but I'm not going to turn my life upside down and do this full time. So I consider a good use of time, instead of maybe watching television too much or doing things that are not that useful, to spend some time over a period of years. On that book on baseball, it took me 8 years to get that selected. I'd pick a weekend out or a few days in the evening, a month, and go to the library and do research. But I just felt it was a good use of time. My approach is just to take it easy. I'm in no big rush. And then write an outline, then a manuscript, and then have somebody help with the editing, like in the case that you did for this book on baseball. Because now in this new book I'm writing on technology, trying to be innovative and with technology for companies that don't have large budgets, I've kind of went through the same thing. I've gathered everything I've learned about aspects of a company that are innovative. And I just try to share that in this book so other companies can read it and actually be taught in workshops or available to universities, so that a college student coming out could have some sense of gauging, if they're going to get involved in some innovation type work, or if it's just going to be copycat Me Too type engineering work.
Thank you. So to backtrack a little bit and to underline that, I did have the privilege of editing your book on baseball, and it was really a lot of fun because really because of so much I learned about the early days of baseball in this country, and particularly in St. Louis. Being a Yankees fan, I, have to admit there's a lot to admire about St. Louis baseball. But and a second thing is, one idea that we talked about earlier was you could find something of local interest and write a book about that and find an audience, and that could be replicated anywhere by any aspiring writer. But a second thing that you've done that I want to underline is you wrote in your field in your profession. So this is also something that could be replicated by many aspiring writers. If you have a profession and you're professional about your work, you will see areas in which you could help other people, and also become. I know you're not trying to become an expert in innovation, but by writing a book, don't you kind of become an expert?
Yeah, I mean, when I did some radio shows on Campbell X, some big radio shows when I had this book out, I told them, I'm really not an expert on anything, and some of the announcers said, "Oh, yes, you are. You wrote this book. You've by default become an expert." So yeah, your point's well taken there. And on the area of innovation, I've been in doing engineering type work, working in and trying to be in an innovation area for over 25 years, and I do see some aspects of this country is slipping on how to be innovative and help people distinguish between creation, invention, and innovation, and how it could be done without massive budgets necessarily. So, it's taking my experiences of my profession, because I've had success, with 15 or so patents plus about 10 or 12 more, and these type of patents have been very successful, making their company millions and millions of dollars. And so I do have a sense of that, hey, look, I know what I'm talking about when this book comes out. It should come across that this person might be pretty knowledgeable and have some credibility.
And it's quite possible that other companies would love to have you come and speak to their employees. So
yeah, I think universities would have go out there and speak at workshops. Where you could you're not just giving an hour presentation, and you're not giving a whole semester class, but maybe a 2-day workshop for university students who are at their senior level, explaining them, that if you want to make a difference in this world, you got to innovate and motivate them and show them some techniques to get started faster.
So we talked a little bit about the editing process for the book on baseball. You've got some close to home help, at least in your family, on your book on innovation. Can you talk about that a little bit? Your daughter?
Yeah, with this book, it's fairly technical, and there's some aspects in it that probably won't be just the easiest reading for a normal layperson, but for people with a technical background, it would be okay. But my daughter, who is is finishing up her PhD at Vanderbilt University, and she's heavily involved in research and innovation in the field of biomedical engineering. So and she has a tremendous skill of not only being technically competent, but also is a great writer. She has tremendous writing skills, and that's a rare combination. So I'm fortunate enough in this book to have her edit it. And I submitted the first 2 or 3 chapters in the manuscript thinking this is wonderful and great. And after she got done with it, she just tore it apart. And as a result, the book is going to be a lot better. So she is somebody that can really add value to the writing, because she just happens to have that tremendous skill.
That's exciting.
Then after that's all done, I may ask you again to kind of give it a kind of a look over one more time. And then that book there, I may try to not necessarily self-publish it, but I may go out and see if it will be, pick up a publisher, because I think it will have much more broad and universal acceptance.
Fantastic. So, last question, unless you have some more things to add, but for someone who hasn't written a book, who's beginning, writing a book seems like a daunting, even impossible goal. But you're almost finished with your second one. So, is there one piece of advice you'd give to someone who feels the desire to be a writer?
Yeah, I would just say, just like, don't never give up. I mean, if you have this passion, you got a story that you want to tell, or you have a topic that you're good at, you want to share, stick with it. And, you should give yourself some kind of a timetable. And depending on your own life circumstances, that could be years and years, or it could be maybe a year or two. That all depends on your circumstance. But you should challenge yourself to give yourself some timetable that makes sense. And then don't be afraid. Write a manuscript. Just through networking and things like that, you can find somebody that might be able to edit for you. And if they are critical of it, learn from it. So don't ever get discouraged. That would be the biggest advice I could give, is just to keep going and don't get discouraged, and you'll get to the end, and you'll be very proud that you did it.
Great. Well, it's been great talking to you, Paul, and I know our viewers, as we get them, will really be fascinated by what you have to say.
Okay, and good luck, and I hope things go well on your end of your purpose here of these interviews, to help inspire writers.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.